Thank you for listening to this episode of the Feldencast. I'm your host, Ethan Cowan. Hello, dear listener. Welcome to episode 13 of the Feldencast, Shoulders Plant. Kind of an awkward title, but we already had the elbow plants, and this one just seemed like it should be called Shoulders Plant. You'll see why. It's based on AY9, which was originally called Preparation for a Shoulder Stand on the Back. And like I said in the previous lesson, we're getting close to the end of season 1 of the Feldencast, which corresponds to the first reel of Alexander Yanai recordings. Remember, these are the recordings that Feldenkrais made of lessons he was teaching, and he recorded them on reel-to-reel tapes. And I don't really know if it's a legitimate way to, I don't really know if it's how much sense it makes to organize my podcast seasons by reel. You know, like season 1 is reel 1 and season 2 is reel 2, etc. But that's what I'm doing. So this is kind of, you know how in TV shows, it's like the second to last episode of the season is always where like the big climax comes? Well, I'm hoping that you have an experience like that with this lesson, but I'm not presuming that you will, just hoping. So yeah, next episode will be the last one of season 1, and take it easy with this lesson. There's some big movements, but they don't have to be big. Okay, here it is. Enjoy Shoulders Plant. Okay, please start by simply lying on your back. And just feel that as you start to pay attention to yourself lying on your back, you're already in a process of adjusting to being horizontal. So you're lying on the floor and you're transitioning from whatever you're doing before you started this recording to now lying on the floor paying attention to yourself. And your sensations as you're horizontal. And there are probably parts of yourself that are very ready to give their weight to the floor. And then there are probably also parts of you that are a little bit hesitant or that need to take their time to see if it's safe to give the weight to the floor. So now we'll just scan some parts that you might get a little bit more familiar with as the lesson progresses. We'll just see how they seem to you at the beginning, and we'll compare at the end. So just feel your lower back. The lumbar spine, the lower part of the back that curves away from the floor. And then you move your attention up the back, start to feel the middle of the back. So all the ribs, all the parts of the spine that are connected to the ribs. Feel the two shoulders, the right shoulder, the left shoulder. The two shoulder blades making contact with the floor probably. And you could see if one shoulder blade is lying differently than the other. Probably lots of descriptors that you could use to communicate the difference between the right shoulder blade and the left. Does one shoulder feel farther forward? Or is one shoulder lying more flat on the floor? Or, is one shoulder lighter and the other shoulder's darker? Or is one shoulder louder, the other one quieter? Or maybe you have some description, some distinction that makes sense to you. So just feel that for a moment. And then move your attention just a little bit farther up the spine so you feel your neck, this top part of the spine. And again, the cervical curve is like an arch. So probably the neck isn't really touching the floor. And then you feel exactly where the neck connects to the skull, the base of the skull. And then what part of the head is resting on the floor? Good. Now, bend your knees and put your feet standing on the floor in a comfortable way. And then lift your pelvis just a little bit away from the floor so you could slide both your hands under the pelvis, behind the pelvis. And then you set the pelvis down on top of the hands. And then make a few small adjustments so that your arms are comfortable, the pelvis is not smashing the hands. You've found a way that this could be sustainable. And then lift your 2 feet away from the floor. So you bring your knees in the direction of your chest. And now start to simply unbend your legs a little bit in a way that lifts your pelvis off of your hands. And then let the legs bend again so that the pelvis returns to the hands. Just do that a few times. So you're unbending the legs, kind of reaching with the feet in a way that lifts the pelvis off the hands. And then you set the pelvis back down. Good. Now, there's a way that you could do this with a little bit more momentum. So you could, I'm going to say a word, you could throw your legs, but you don't have to throw them powerfully. You could kind of toss your legs like up in the direction of the head, so the pelvis lifts a little bit. But then pretty quick, the knees will bend and the pelvis will just land softly back on the hands. But you don't need to go far. I mean, you might be inclined to try to find the extreme of this movement pretty quickly, and that's fine too. Just go slowly. Okay, now leave it and bring your hands out so your arms are just along your sides. And then lengthen the legs and just rest on your back for a moment. Good. Now roll to one of your sides so you could bring yourself up to sitting using the help of one of your arms. Maybe both of your arms. And then sit in a way so that both of the soles of your feet are on the floor. So your knees are up in the air, kind of in front of your chest. And then extend your arms forward so that the hands are out in front of you. Now, starting like this, maybe I'll describe it before you do it. So you're gonna roll down onto your back with a little bit of momentum so that the legs kind of go over the head. And then you're going to roll back up to this sitting position. So yeah, I guess you can just try that. Try it a few times. Good. Okay, now just next time you're up in the sitting position, just pause for a moment. So there are a couple of interesting things about doing this that I want to just bring your attention to. One is that because of the way that your arms are starting extended in front of you, when you roll onto your back and the pelvis leaves the floor, goes up, your two arms end up kind of above your head on the floor. Okay, so that's one thing. Another thing is you want to feel that the back is really round in all the different parts of the back. So the lower back, middle of the back, and the neck all get round so you can, roll across all the different parts of the back. So now that I've said that, just try it a few more times. Just feel where the arms end up above the head on the floor and how round all the different parts of the back are. Try it a few more times. Okay, great. Now leave it alone. Put yourself back onto your back. So you just lie on the floor for another minute. Just take a rest. Good. Now just bend both of your knees. Put the feet standing on the floor where they're comfortable. And just rest for another little bit of time with the knees bent. Okay, now lift your right foot a little bit away from the floor. Leave the left foot standing so that the right knee is closer to the chest. And starting in this kind of asymmetrical position, again, toss your legs over the top of your head, or in that direction, then set the pelvis back down. So you're continuing with what you've been doing, but you're kind of leading with the right leg. So the right leg goes farther than the left leg. The left leg still goes somewhere because the pelvis is going somewhere. But the right leg goes farther than the left leg, and then when you come back down, the pelvis gets set back down. The left foot comes to the floor, but the right foot, doesn't. And the other thing is that the left foot can push a little bit to start because it's on the floor. Okay, now put the right foot back on the floor. So both feet are standing on the floor. And then lift the left foot away from the floor so the left knee comes toward the chest. And again, do this tossing of the legs movement with the left leg leading this time. Now, what's the difference with the left leg leading? Is there any difference? Okay, now put both of your feet back onto the floor and just pause for a moment with the legs standing like that. And now you're going to figure out exactly where you need to have your arms. So I suggest you start by having the arms just a little bit farther out to the sides, like diagonal, maybe 45-degree diagonals away from the torso. And now take both your feet away from the floor. So they start up in the air. And now you're gonna again toss both of the feet together over the top of the head. But now look for exactly the spot to have the arms so that the arms can help you with the tossing of the legs. So maybe you want to press into the floor a little bit or use the arms for balance at some point. And again, you can feel all the different parts of the back that have to get very round for this rolling to be a smooth process. Okay, great. Leave it and lengthen both of your legs. Have your arms just comfortably along your sides. Now again, bend both of your knees, put your feet stand on the floor, and rest for another little bit with the knees bent. And now lift your left foot up into the air and reach with your left hand to grab a hold of the left foot. So you reach over the top of the foot. So you're holding the outside of the foot in the left hand. But you want to have the left knee to the outside of the left arm. Good. Now in this position, just start to unbend the left knee and then let the knee bend again. And just experiment with straightening the left leg while you hold on to the foot with the left hand. Now, let's say that there are no constraints on how you do this, so don't limit yourself. Like if you wanted to lengthen the left leg, would it be helpful to like roll yourself in one direction or the other? And you feel that when you straighten the left leg, because your left arm is holding on to it, does the left arm get longer? And what parts of the back have to get longer for the left leg to straighten? And see if you can soften your eyes, soften your jaw. You could smile a little bit while the leg is straightening. Okay, now let go of the leg, let go of the foot, put it back on the floor. And just rest on your back for another second with both legs bent, just standing. And now lift the right foot away from the floor so you can grab it with the right hand. So the right knee is the outside of the right arm, but you're reaching over the top of the right foot, so you got the outside edge of the right foot cupped in the right hand. And now start to explore straightening the right leg. And again, you can move anything. Any part of yourself, any part of the back. You could roll yourself. Isn't it interesting that sometimes you can't do something because you're stuck with an idea about how you should do it? Then if you change your idea of what's allowed, all of a sudden it's a whole different story. You could find out if you need to lift the head or move the head in a certain direction for the leg to straighten. I guarantee that there's something that you could do with your breathing and make your breathing a little bit softer to get more flexible in the middle. Okay, good. Now again, just let go of the foot, put the right foot back on the floor, just rest for a moment with the legs standing. And now lift both feet away from the floor, grab a hold of the left foot with the left hand, the right foot with the right. So you're over the tops of both of the ankles, the front of the ankles with the wrists, and you've got both feet and both hands. And now lengthen both of the legs at the same time, holding on with both hands. And you're trying to lengthen the legs, but you don't need to straighten the legs. The knees don't have to get totally straight. It's more important for you to feel what goes on in the back and how the arms can be not holding on for dear life, but helpful. And find out, what do you want to do with your head? What's the most useful thing to do with the head, the neck, for the legs to straighten? And is the expression that you have on your face helping? Good, now let go of both feet and put the feet back on the floor. Put your arms down along your sides and actually lengthen both of your legs. Rest with the legs long. Okay, now bend both of your knees. Put the feet standing on the floor again. And now interlace your fingers and bring your two hands behind your head. And lift your feet away from the floor. Bring your knees in the direction of your chest. And now listen before you try this. So what you're going to do is you're going to continue with the kind of tossing the legs and the feet. But you're going to lift your head away from the floor at the same time that you toss the legs. It's going to feel weird, so go really slowly. Just try that a few times. Okay, so just pause for a moment. Just think it through. You're going to try it a few more times, but just think it through first. So you're asking, you're going to toss the legs, which asks the pelvis to leave the floor, and that means that the lower back is going to get round. And then at the same time, you're going to be lifting your head away from the floor. So it's asking the upper back to get round. But there's a part of the middle of the back has to be the inflection point between these two tasks. So do it a couple more times, a few more times, but go slowly enough so you can feel what you're actually doing, how you're coordinating this. Okay, great. Now roll yourself to one side. Use one of your arms to help you come up to sitting. And then sit with the soles of your feet together. So the knees are out wide. And parts of both legs the outsides of the legs are kind of resting on the floor, maybe. And now interlace your fingers, bring the two hands behind your head. And bend your head forward, but feel you could let your two elbows come forward. And the two elbows could actually kind of hang down, like in the direction of the floor, and the head could come forward, so the back of the neck is very long. Right, so feel if you can let the elbows kind of hang forward together. The back of the neck is long. And then feel what happens when you just bring the elbows apart. If you let yourself, doesn't that kind of naturally bring you back into a more upright position? So do a movement a few times where you let the elbows come forward and it rounds the upper part of your spine. And then you bring the elbows farther out and feel how that brings you back into an upright position. But when the elbows are coming forward, it's really more of like a surrender to gravity, like they're giving their weight to gravity, if you can. And it means that the head comes forward and down the direction of the floor. The back gets very wide, the shoulders get very wide and back. Okay, good. Now just delace the fingers and sit for a moment quietly. Just rest in sitting. And then again, interlace the fingers. Bring the two hands behind the head. And hopefully you're still sitting with the soles of the 2 feet together. Now bring your elbows forward. See if they can surrender somewhat to gravity so that the top of the spine gets round. And just leave the elbows hanging forward like this. And now feel that there's a way that you could just round your lower back a little bit more. And that would have the head kind of going down closer to the floor. And then without the elbows coming back, you could just kind of unround the lower back. So it brings you a little bit more upright, but the top of the spine stays round. So just do this movement a couple of times, rounding the lower back, and then straightening the lower back, but the upper back stays round the whole time. So you feel how that rounding and straightening the lower back has you kind of rolling on the pelvis a little bit backwards. And then you erect yourself. Like you're getting shorter and then taller, just in the lower back. Okay, great. Now leave that alone and roll onto your back and rest horizontally. Now again, roll yourself to one side so you could use your arms to help you come up to sitting. And now put your left foot standing on the floor, but have your right leg long. And then turn your head so you're facing to the left. You bring your right hand behind your head so that the right hand, maybe hold on to the left ear. And now put your left hand behind you somewhere on the floor. And now do a movement a few times where you take the right ear a little bit closer to the left knee. So you just take the right ear closer to the left knee and then you go back to where you started. Just a few times to feel how you can do that. What do you have to do in the back to direct the right ear toward the left knee? And the idea is that the right hand that's behind the head, holding onto the left ear-ish, the right elbow could be kind of heavy, the way that it was just a little bit ago, and you could do something all along the different parts of the back to get the ear to go toward the knee. And also, the left hand back there on the floor, maybe don't have it just be secondary, but bring it into the movement. How could the left arm help you? Bend different parts of the back. The ear, it just goes toward the knee. It doesn't even have to get close to it, just a little bit closer. Some people could take the right elbow to the outside of the left knee. But whether or not you could do it, you can imagine somehow it'd be possible. Okay, good. Now let go of the head and just sit for a moment, any position that's comfortable to rest. And now again have the left foot standing on the floor, the right leg long. But now turn to the right and bring your left hand behind your head. And put the right hand somewhere on the floor, over to the right of you or behind you, somewhere comfortable. And now a few times, just sink your left elbow in the direction of the right knee. You sink it if it's possible. Or let it surrender to gravity in that direction. But maybe you have to use some of the muscles in the back too. And, the three different parts of the back, the lumbar, lower, the thoracic, middle, the cervical, upper, how are all parts participating? And maybe the right hand on the floor, the right arm, could help a little. If the left elbow were kind of falling heavy toward the right knee, but it was still holding on to the right ear behind the head, then the head would turn a little bit more to the right. Okay, let it go, and maybe rest on your back for a moment. So lie down, legs long, just pause. Good, and then bring yourself to one side up to sitting. Now, bend your right knee. Put the right foot standing on the floor. And bring your right hand behind your head. So you could grab somewhere close to the left ear. It's almost like you could hang your hand by holding on to somewhere close to the left ear. The elbow could get heavy. But you put your left hand on the floor somewhere behind you. And before you start to take your right elbow in the direction of the left knee, try to allow a smile to come across the face as the face gets wider. And then start the process of starting where you start and then sinking the right elbow in the direction of the left knee. And letting yourself go back to where you start each time. So it's not a constant straining, but it's a series of little experiments of taking the elbow in the direction of the knee, not that it has to get there. How to help with the left arm. And, the three different parts of the back, the lumbar, lower, the thoracic, middle, the cervical, upper, how are all parts participating? Where do the eyes gaze throughout this whole process? Okay, now pause in sitting. So put the legs somehow comfortable enough to rest for a moment. And then again, bring your right foot to stand on the floor, so the right knee is up in the air, the left leg is long. And now turn your head to the right and bring your left hand up behind the head to catch somewhere near the right ear. The right hand behind you somewhere on the floor. And then a number of times, very slowly now, take your left ear in the direction of the right knee. Is it easier to take it toward the knee when you're breathing out or when you're breathing in? Okay, leave it again and lie on your back again. Okay, now one more time. Roll yourself to one side to bring yourself up to sitting. And again, now sit with the feet so the soles of the feet are together. The legs are out to the sides. And interlace your fingers, bring them behind your head. And now see about hanging the elbows forward and down. Feel how that is in the back. And then again, just with the lower back, round and then erect. A few times very slowly to try to feel more detail. And in the lower abdomen, what gets soft to sink backwards. Good, and then leave it. Roll yourself down onto your back. Lie with the legs long. And then bend your knees so the feet are standing on the floor. And I'll just describe something that you can try before you do it. So what you'll do is you'll toss your legs, up and over the head, but instead of having it be like you toss them and then you roll back down, you're going to position your arms such that they can kind of catch the pelvis or the back up in the air so that the pelvis could stay up in the air. It's kind of like you're going to go to stand on your shoulders. And just a warning, you should just try to stand on your shoulders for a little bit and then let yourself down. So you want to make sure that you don't get yourself into a position where things start to like crunch or break. But the idea is eventually you're gonna be able to stand up on your shoulders. Your elbows will be on the floor. Your hands will be supporting the pelvis or the back. So you could stay up there for a little bit, planted on the shoulders. So now in your own time, just go step by step as you find out how you could do that. Okay, good. Now, bring yourself down so you could just pause for a moment and reflect about, whether that feels good, safe, or whether you're pushing too far, or what you could adjust next time so it feels a little bit better. And then once you're clear about the parameters of your next little experiment, do it again. So you just toss the feet so you can stand on the shoulders. Good, and then this next little set of instructions is just assuming that you have a stable position standing on the shoulders. But if you don't worry, just keep working to trying to find out how to make that sustainable for yourself so you could stay there and not put yourself at risk of injury. But if you're standing on the shoulders, just have the legs more or less straight, whatever angle they are, they're straight. And then do a very slow movement of bringing both legs just a little bit closer to the floor above the head, and then a little bit away from the floor. Good, and now just with the right leg comes a little bit closer to the floor above the head. Doesn't need to get anywhere near the floor, but then it gets a little bit farther away from the floor. And then the left leg gets a little closer to the floor and farther away from the floor. And now both legs together again. Great, now let yourself down. Put your legs long. And just feel for yourself now what parts of you are willing to give their weight to the floor. What feels weighty now? And what about the 3 different sections of your spine? Start with the lumbar section. How does that feel compared to the beginning? And how about the thoracic spine and the ribs? And what about the neck? How does your neck feel? Okay, now this is kind of a preview of a whole series of lessons that's going to be threaded throughout season 2. So if you feel like that wasn't enough, just get ready, there's plenty more. So now just roll to one side. Use your arm or your arms to help you come up to sitting, get yourself up to standing. And just stand for a moment with the arms hanging, the legs standing. Feel how the spine is stacking up. So the lower spine stacks up on top of the pelvis. The middle of the spine stacks on the lower spine. The neck stacks on top of the middle of the spine. The head is on top of the neck. Okay, great. And now just walk around for a little bit to see how you feel. Maybe even go for a walk outside. Thanks again for listening to this episode of the Feldencast. If you'd like to reach out and say hello, please do. You can email me at ethan@feldencast.com. I offer the Feldencast in a spirit of transparent generosity. If you have enjoyed your experience, and if you want to give back, please check out the Patreon page. It's patreon.com/Feldencast. Right now, this podcast is just a baby. We have on average 10, 12 listeners per episode. So if you'd like to help the Feldencast grow, please share this episode or any other episode that you've enjoyed, especially with family and friends. Thanks again for listening. I'm really enjoying this project, and I hope you are too.